So the history behind my association with Veda VC or Shastra VC as it is known now is that they reached out to me sometime back saying, "Hey, can you be an LP in our fund?" And I was like, "Sorry boss, I'm very small fish. I don't have 1 crore to give you guys." But since then we've been in touch. We've exchanged notes on our investment philosophies, specific startups and so on. So very happy to have Ashish today on this podcast.
Hey Ashish, fantastic to have you here. Thanks for joining in. Maybe you can start with a brief introduction about yourself and your fund.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ram. This is the first time I'm recording for a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so thanks for inviting.
That's interesting.
Right. So yeah, brief introduction, right? So yeah, I come from a small town, Rourkela, Odisha. Dad was into academics. He used to teach chemistry in the local university. So the environment at home was all academics heavy. So I went to NIT Calicut, did my computer science engineering. Loved CS, absolutely. But I guess at the end of my engineering, I had figured out the application of CS interested me more than building stuff. But I had a campus job with Intel, worked there for 3 years, coded, really good experience. But then I guess that's when I again decided I should get into the application side of things, and went to do my MBA from IIM Bangalore. In the last trimester of MBA is when a friend was starting up a batchmate. This is early 2011, so pre-startup, pre-funding era. So I kind of decided to, partner with him and start the company. Back then, interestingly, the thought was very simple. I was 25, and the thought was the liability in life cannot get any less than this. So that was the primary motivation to start then. Yeah, so we ran an ad tech company for 2.5 years, raised a very little amount of around 40-45 lakhs. Decent business, 15-17 lakhs monthly revenue, 13-14 people. We had broken even, but realized this model is not going to scale. So sort of shut it down. But by then had realized two things. One is entrepreneurship is super fun. And second is just a tidy bit of confidence that this is doable. Right. So we didn't take up a job again, and we started up again. So we started up and ran Auto Ninja. Auto Ninja was a B2B SaaS company for auto dealership. We were SAF partners funded. Ran that company for 6.5 years. Pretty good business, 32 crores ARR, 10 crore EBITDA, all product, no service. Then eventually around 2019, we decided to sell it off, had multiple offers, and eventually sold it to ICICI Lombard. So yeah, that's the story as an operator. Had a very long lock-in of 3 years, so I could not have started up again. So I knew a friend, Vasant, who had started investing, who is my partner at the fund, and he had started doing angel investment. So I thought angel investment is a no-brainer thing. I mean, you invest in things that you believe you understand. And after running business for a decent period of time, I thought I could be able to evaluate companies. So that's when, Vasant, me, and a few of his friends, there is Avi, who is my third partner here, and 2-3 other guys. So three of us had very similar background. We have started companies in India, raised in India, scaled, and all three of us had exited our companies also. So it's a very nice combo. And then there were 3-4 people who were active founders. So between 6-7 of us, we started doing angel investment. Angel investment proved to be spectacular. My first investment was Agnikul. Then we did first round of Elo, first round of One Impression, etc., etc. So did that for 1.5 years. Bunch of people started reaching out to us that, hey, we really like your portfolio, want to co-invest. So we kind of made it a syndicate. So that ran for further 15 months or so. So altogether 2.5 years of investment as personal capacity. And that's when we had to take the call whether we want to do it the full time or not, because being VC and being an operator is just different ball game, right? So just wanted to be very sure that if this is what we want to give our next 12-15 years into. And we thought, angel investment, early stage investment is super fun. The closest thing that you can get to a startup without actually playing the game of a founder, which is so difficult. So that was that. And we thought we have a very unique advantage, a genuine alpha, that it's a fund by 3 partners who are exit entrepreneurs in the modern tech ecosystem. We thought a very decent, genuine alpha to play. Yeah, that's when we decided to do a fund. Yeah, so that's Veda VC or now Shastra VC. Yep, that's that, Ram.
Awesome, awesome. And, would love to pick on one small comment you made. You believed, given your operator experience, you will be able to evaluate, startup deals well. After having done a lot, do you still feel that, or do you think that, on the other side of the table, it's sometimes a little more difficult than what you had anticipated?
No, not really. I think it's absolutely correct. Look, so the way we run the fund, we are always first institutional check in any company that we have done. So from the fund, including the ones where we have wired money and the commitment that we have done, 20 out of 20, we are the first investor in the company. So we come extremely early, and that's when you typically have an MVP at best, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4 paying clients, or if it's a deep tech company, just early traction or early technology burst, right? So I think at that stage, the bet is primarily on the conviction of the founders on the problem that they're trying to solve. The way that I look at it is, when I was doing Auto Ninja, right? And one day I had to hire a UX designer, and I had absolutely no clue of UX, right? I had absolutely no clue what's the question that I'm going to ask him, right? And I was terrible in, the simplest form of in school, which is what drawing, sketch. So in every class, I used to be like topper till the drawing results came out, and I would be second or third, right? So I was terrible, right? So I can't visualize. So, but when I had to hire the UX guy, if the questions that I was posing, I didn't have an answer, but essentially you're trying to figure out whether the other person has the answer or not, right? So I think, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is whether a founder conviction on the problem that he is solving, how far it could be from reality. Obviously, all of us make mistakes, but how far it can be from reality is if someone has gone through that phase over a year, right, should be a better person to judge that. And yeah, I guess so far in our 1.5 years of experience as fund and whatever 2.5 years as angel investor, I would say that I still believe in that.
Awesome, awesome. And the whole element of true blood operators kind of running the fund is a most definitely a positive thing. So all the best for
I
your
think
future.
I think at the early stage at least, right? When there is no traction, there is no MIS, there are no numbers to figure out. I think the operators, maybe ex-founders or super early employees of large companies now definitely should have an edge, and I think they have an edge.
Awesome. And when did you guys rebrand as Shastra instead of Veda? What?
Very recently, man, 3-4 months back. I still struggle to say that we are Shastra VC, to be
Okay.
very honest. But we have been saying ourselves Veda for a long time. So, I mean, the reason was actually very simple. There was a capital advisory firm called Veda Capital Advisory, very old, very professional, really, really good guys. We met them also, based out of Chennai.
Okay.
So one day they raised a complaint that, hey, we have a trademark. We had obviously spoken to our lawyers. They said there's some gray area, but yeah, so we said better earlier than before, than late. So yeah, we had to rebrand, and we thought Shastra is the closest name to Veda.
Nice, nice. And are you into the old scriptures? Have you personally read the Vedas or the Upanishads, stuff like that?
Sadly, I have not, but I'll tell you one thing, right? So, so I have been a Sanghi, right, from very, very long time, right? I genuinely believe in our civilization, right? So to me, all of our scriptures, our religion or whatever you call it, right? So is play a very big part of the civilization that we are part of, right? So unfortunately, I have not read Veda or Upanishads, but I have read very decent amount of literature which are based on some of the learnings of Veda or Upanishad to at least have made a belief or conviction that those are the bedrocks of our civilization. But yeah, sadly, I have not read.
I'll probably have an offline chat with you about those books. I'm personally very interested in this space. I would not say I'm a well-read guy in this subject, but I just find it fascinating. But
I think it's very difficult to become well-read because there are just so many.
So many, yeah, exactly.
I mean, imagine if there is, I know I'm going to take 30 seconds on this,
Sure.
but look at this, right? If we are a civilization of 10,000 years, continue, right? I mean, this 10,000 is debatable, whatever, right? So if we are a continuous civilization for 10,000 years, faced enemies all across, and we are still standing. There have to have been hundreds of things, or maybe thousands of things, which have gone extremely right at very high magnitude. Otherwise, would not have been still there continuous, right? So yeah.
Beautiful perspective. On that topic, how's your investment in Devdam coming along? How are they doing?
I think it's a very interesting problem that they're solving. Obviously, other folks tried solving the for the audience in a different way. These guys took a very different route. Yeah, they're going steady. It's not that they're killing it as a rocket ship. But yes, steady. I think the first set of things that they did for in the first 1.5 years was pure hustle, right? So there was not much tech done. Now they have been emphasizing a lot on the app, on the tech, the user experience, user journey, etc. Yeah, so they've been steady.
Nice, nice. And I also saw that you caught on to the ESG and the carbon madness, and
Yeah.
I refer to it as madness with all due respect. How is the business of alt carbon going? And would love to know a little more detail about what they're doing.
Yeah, just two parts to that question. First of all, I don't call myself a climate warrior. I drive a car which gives like a 7 kilometer per liter. So I'm definitely not a climate warrior. I genuinely believe ESG is a fad. Climate is not, but I genuinely believe ESG is a fad, and it's a different form of jizya tax or whatever East India company you call it. But having said that, if there is money to be made, money is to be made, right? So, so Alt Carbon is a very, very, very interesting company. We genuinely like climate from the perspective that there would be a bunch of climate companies, bunch of sustainability companies which will be built. And we don't like we actually like the climate companies which have a genuine technology mode. So possibly I would stay away from carbon accounting softwares for now at least. But I like the ones where there is genuine technology mode and differentiation. So, and Alt Carbon is one of those. So if I can possibly take 2 minutes to make you understand what Alt Carbon does.
Yeah, please.
So they're into enhanced rock weathering. So simple English, rock weathering is when it rains, it's a nature phenomena. When it rains, there is obviously H2O. The rain falls on massive rocks in the mountains or the hills, etc. And the rocks have calcium and silica, and there is CO2 in the atmosphere. So CO2 plus H2O plus calcium, it becomes a calcium carbonate first, and then calcium carbonate, and then over the years, after a long time, that becomes calcium bicarbonate, right? Or the silica becomes silicate. So the moment your calcium carbonate becomes calcium bicarbonate is when the carbon dioxide actually gets completely weathered inside the rock, right? So essentially the CO2 is getting removed from the atmosphere and it is getting deposited inside the rock, right? So that's the simple funda, how much tons of carbon dioxide you can remove. So that's called rock weathering. And over like maybe 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, maybe 100 years, this rock, slight bit of rocks keep coming out, keep dissolving and go to the soil. And with the rainwater, it goes to river, and from there it goes to your sea. So the bed of the sea, a large part of the bed of the sea that you see of silicate and all of that deposit is because of the rock weathering. So very interesting thing happened. A bunch of crazy professors from Yale University said, "Hey, this is phenomenal." But the biggest constraint is the surface area of the rock, which is actually facing the rain, is very small. Why don't we just crush them, make it a powder, and throw it on the land, right? So the surface area goes up, the weathering becomes faster. So whatever it took like 30 years, 100 years, might just come down to a few months, maybe 24 months, maybe 30 months, etc. So, and they called it enhanced rock weathering. So that's the concept of ERW. So Alt Carbon is a very interesting company from the perspective that they are doing ERW. Why ERW is interesting is one of the rock, which is considered to be one of the best in weathering, is actually basalt, which is used in construction. And it is heavily easily available in India. There is Rajmahal Trap, there is Deccan Trap, which has massive basalt deposit. And the reason why basalt is one of the best, because the silica content in basalt is very high. So we have a massive advantage in there. That's first one. Second is for the construction. The stone crushers are actually making those, grinding those rocks into smaller pieces, right? And while they're crushing the stone, the powder form deposits, it falls off and there is no use. So the powder form, a small micron form, which is not used at all, is there. So all that you need to do is, take this powdered basalt and put it on agricultural land, or what do you call barren land. Interesting thing about basalt is another second, if you have to give it to a farmer to put it on his agricultural land, obviously he will be like, theek hai, I will make some money out of the carbon credit, but what if my yield goes down? What happens to my soil right now or over a long period of time? Interesting thing is basalt has a huge magnesium content. So by Agricultural Department of India, it is an approved fertilizer. So it's a beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah.
So who's the paying customer for this solution? It's the farmer or is it someone else?
No, it's the paying customers are the ones who are going to get carbon credit, right?
Okay.
Who wants to buy carbon credit. Alt Carbon will create carbon credit out of this.
Okay.
What Alt Carbon will do is they will do all of this and then they spread it across agricultural land. Right now, interestingly, the founder has access to massive spread of land because of his family business. They're tea plantation owners for last 100 years. So he's
Nice.
doing on his own land, and over the years what will happen is essentially there is a very decent amount of tech involved. So simple, right? Every soil has a different pH content. Every place will have very different rainfall. Every crop will have different water retention. And every 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer radius, the mineral content of basalt changes. So you require a very decent amount of geoscience to figure out at what place, at what crop, at what time, at what rain, how much should I spray, right? So that's the first part to figure out. And the second part is, if you have to sell it to anyone, right? So who is looking to buy a carbon credit, how does he know that it's a good carbon credit, right? So that requires a lot of, obviously, geoscience, bunch of soil samples, regular soil samples, which is sort of providing you how much carbonate has become, whatever bicarbonate, what's the isotope differentiation over a period of time. So that requires a lot of geoscience involved. So that's the technology. Now, once you qualify that, then you try to find buyers for carbon credit. These are going to be primarily in developed countries. Most likely will be US. So the folks like JP Morgan, the folks like Stripe, the folks like Meta, Amazon, etc., who are trying to go, carbon neutral. The Frontier Fund has been set up for this anyway. So they are anyways looking to, buy good quality carbon credit, which is ERW and direct air capture. So formally, they have sort of pledged that till 2032, every good quality ERW and DAC credit they will buy. They have pledged that. Now the qualifier is a good quality. So if you can produce a good quality, I think there's a massive business to be made.
Awesome. And, tea plantation anyways, that kind of farms are typically large areas. It's not like you're consolidating small landholds. So I love
Absolutely.
the business idea. We should talk at length about this separately.
Absolutely right. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure you would have evaluated other, climate businesses where you might not have, got conviction. Would love to hear if you have any funny stories about पता नहीं क्या ही सोच रहे थे, but ये model समझ में नहीं आया. Anything of that sort?
No, I think I've evaluated a bunch, right? So generally we have the associate who is very well versed with climate. So bunch of the things that you're looking for, he generally filters it before bringing it to me. So yeah, so I don't think I have a lot of those funny stories, but primarily there are 2-3 things because of which we have not done any other climate other than alt carbon. Is I don't see a technical mode at most of the people. So for example, if you are doing a carbon accounting, it's essentially a data warehousing play, right? And obviously you can do a bunch of collaboration, blah blah blah, etc. But there is not much of a moat there. Maybe if you go vertical and try to find unique insight, there could be a case, but we haven't seen much there, right? So that's one. The other types that we have seen is some sort of a battery packs, swap, etc. Blah blah blah. Either we didn't have conviction on the TAM, or we didn't have the conviction on that this team will be able to capture 40-30% of the market. Or maybe there were one or two deals where we thought we could have definitely gone if it had come to us as at seed stage, but it came at the next round where the valuation is slightly up, and because we had question regarding the TAM, that the TAM is not massive but good enough, but it's not good enough to go in the second. So yeah, so primarily climate has been the, so far for us like this. Yeah, alt carbon we really like because there is a massive technology barrier that they are creating, and which could be of play, and the founder to the problem fit was immense.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's talk about the overall funding scenario with the so-called winter extending for the last year or couple of years. Do you see the founder behavior or the valuations looking saner? I used to hear a lot of complaints from VCs earlier that, founders were already always creating a FOMO. I have this term sheet, and you're talking about this being an unreasonable valuation. I am having conversations even at a higher valuation, blah, blah, blah. Has the environment changed? Have conversations become better?
Two parts to it, right? So I just don't get when any of the investor crips that the valuation is up, right? So it's a pure capitalist supply demand game, right? So so if someone will quote a very high valuation if is actually getting from someone, right? Some other people might be valuing that company at other at a valuation that you think is not normal. Then the investor should be cribbing about their other fellow investors than on the founder. That's my first perspective. And if at a valuation, if the founder thinks he wants, let's say, X valuation, or let's say $20 million valuation, and if people are not ready to give him the term sheet at that, then one day, maybe 3 months later, 6 months later, he will come down to 10 or 12, right? So I think it's a pretty fair game out there. It's a supply demand game. That's the first part. Second part is, yes, absolutely, right? So I think, and the reason is not because founders have become sane. The reason is very simple, because of the environment. The investors are not writing checks. Earlier, let's say in 21, 22, I would say this, right? 21 and 22 were abnormal. This year is not abnormal. The 21 and 22 were abnormal. 23 was possibly looked abnormal because 21, 22 was very high and we started comparing with. I would say 23 was obviously worse than 19 or 20 or pre the Pagalpanti era. But yeah, there was funding winter definitely. And because there was not a lot of money which was essentially chasing companies, the valuations were lower. It was lower than usual. Obviously, because the founders know that they cannot raise much, and the next round will also obviously take time. So they are much saner in terms of how they are going to, spend. It's an investor market, definitely. So the rights are better. Yeah, it's, I would say, like any other market, when the market is down, you always get the best deal. 23 was that, and I would say 24 will not be as bad as 23 in terms of the funding, but it will be a lot better. I think 24 would be as close to as 19 or an 18 or a 20.
Interesting. When founders come and talk to you, make loud claims or pitches, is there something which is like a screaming red flag for you, something which totally turns you off and you say, boss, let's just walk away?
The first thing is, look, so our entire positioning of the fund is that we are an operator VC, and we like to spend time with the founders and be genuine partner in the journey, right? Whatever they need at any point of time, right? So in those circumstances, obviously, if a founder's personality is not that one of receptive, or a founder you think you cannot work with, even if whatever he's building is pretty nice, that's a red flag for us. That's the biggest checkpoint that we do, because simple, right? So if the founder does not need anything from me or require anything from me, or I cannot add any value, then for him, us versus a regular financial investor is the same. And I'm a small fund, so I don't think I will be able to win those deals. Maybe one or two I will do, but at a portfolio level I can't. So that's the biggest red flag, primarily. Otherwise, I won't call anything else as a screaming red. But somewhere around that, there will be some red, some orange. But yeah, I guess that's the only like a screaming red for me.
Okay. On a related note, most of the investors, talk about the founder being a key consideration.
Yes.
But when I ask funds about, okay, so how exactly do you evaluate a founder? I've not got very specific answers, and the IIT IM tags are just too much of stereotyping, I guess. So what do you look for in a founder, and what kind of credentials or experience or behavioral details make it a green flag for you?
The 3-4 points that I would want to highlight. The first point is the team complementary enough, right? There are 2 or 3 founders. Are they complementary? So running a company would require possibly 4 or 5 skills. Do the founders complement each other and possibly cover most of those areas? That's one. And 1.1 would be there should not be a lot of overlaps, because in future that always creates a problem. That's the first part. Second part that I look for, and possibly that will be the first part, is the grit or the perseverance of the founder. Because the journey is obviously like proper sine curve. You will always have multiple near death moment if you are running a company for over maybe 6 years, 7 years, right? So very important to try to judge if this guy is gritty enough. That's the second part. Third part is obviously you are looking.
Sorry, how do you gauge that? How do you gauge that grit part?
Typically, you try to try to figure out their journey. What they have done in the past at jobs, in campus, if they had run startup before, what why did it stop? Why did you fail? Or whatever, how did they even come across this problem, whatever the problem that they're trying to solve, why that problem, did you choose anything else, etc., etc. It's a very difficult thing to sort of judge. There are no set questions, but yeah, from there you try to figure out how does the founder think. If in my mind, if someone is able to think deep and course correct, right? So you started to do something, and you have the ability to think deep to understand whether something is working and why it is working, and something is not working and why it is not working, and then be flexible enough to, if it is not working, to get out of that mess and maybe do a complete pivot from X to Y, or maybe X to X dash. Has he done that in life, etc., etc.? And you try to judge on the basis of that, and you do that over. It does not happen over 15 minutes. It happens over maybe 3 conversations, 4 conversations. Yeah, and you try to sort of create a mental model in your head whether these guys have the quality. Yeah, sometimes you also can't judge, but you try to find out at least the answer that will these guys fall, right? If something does not work out, is he going to change? At least you try to arrive at that point. If the answer to that is yes, definitely you don't do that deal. In some cases the answer is yes, in some cases the answer is gray, but that's the first thing that you try. Yeah, these are the 2, and the third is obviously track record. That is where your IIT IM stereotype thing is coming. To try to see the track record from the perspective is whatever he has done, has he achieved excellence? In my view, you can call it an IIT IM, but to me, if you have done good things in your life, at least in the academics, when you are supposed to do academics, let's say till the age of 20, 21, 22, whatever it is, if you have actually achieved excellence in that and reached to those places, that's a big yes for me. That's one. Having said that, there could be some nuances. There could be someone who has gone to an engineering college but did not crack a good CG. It was a very low CG, but at the same time, his next, whatever he has done after that, maybe he has gone on to do an MBA and did really well, or go on to do a job and has done really, really, really well. That's mighty good. That maybe that he did not have an interest at that point of time, but he bounced back, right? So these are the things so you look for excellence. You look for spike.
Sure. And just to kind of be clear about my own perspective, I'm not saying IIT IM does not have any value, but it's just that in my mind, that's one of the things, and you rightly said, it's one of the credentials which shows you that, like you said, when you were supposed to do academics.
The way that I look at it, right, Ram, VCs are in the business of minimizing risk. Right. We'll all do mistakes. I would rather do less type 2 error than the type 1 error. I'm okay to miss out on good deal, but I'm not okay to do bad deals. That's what you think at that point of time. So that's when you're minimizing the risk.
Omission versus
some of
commission.
These points. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay, quickly. I'm just curious, did you ever do a deal which you thought will not get attraction from the typical VCs going forth, but
Nah,
still.
not really. Nah, no, not
Okay.
not really.
All right, cool. Any examples of, bad due diligence stories? I mean, as an operator, when I was sitting on the other side and kind of filling up paperwork after paperwork, I had to clean a lot of shit. But, as an investor, have you seen like, oh my God, what the hell is going on with this company kind of situation?
Yeah. You come across these very frequently.
Can you share some examples?
Yeah, without taking names, the people will quote some ARR or MRR, and when you do the due diligence, you'd realize these contracts have not been signed, or these contracts have been signed since 6 months, but the money has not been wired, or the money has been wired like 4 months back, and the contract has been signed, but the client is not live till last 4 months, etc., etc. Or there is some client which ran maybe at X revenue for 4 months. For the next 8 months, it has not run, but the contract is not terminated. All of this. So these things all.
Okay, got it. Cool. Great having you on the podcast. Before we sign off, any suggestions for founders who are trying to approach Shastra VC?
Yeah, definitely. But I'll just add to one question that you were asking, whether we have done any deal which we think that other VCs will not do. The answer was obviously no. But what we have done at multiple places is there were a bunch of deals that we have done. 2, 3 definitely that I can think of. 3 definitely that could be more. Where at that round, VCs did not have the conviction enough to, maybe they were convinced, but they were not excited, right? So to get on board, and they would be like, boss, show us some traction, show us some data, and then we'll definitely come on the next round. There have been multiple cases where we have taken that call. So for example, Alt Carbon was exactly a deal like that, right? So obviously most people loved the story, but they wanted to see some result on the ground. So no one else came on that round, but we are the only one who wrote the check. So that's that. But yeah, for the founders, look, I think I'm in a term that almost everyone uses, the founder empathy. To me, founder empathy is, can I be in your shoes, right? Especially when things are not doing great, right? Or if you have to, anything about org building, anything about the strategy. I think between 3 of the founders, four of the founders rather, at Shastra, we have done entrepreneurship over 35, 40 years combined. And we have been through what the founders are going through. So I think we would be, I think we would you'll find a very good partner with us. For personally, for me, 10 years of entrepreneurship, maybe a year of VC, I still think like a founder. So that's why you should partner with us.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashish. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Lovely, Ram. It was lovely talk.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That brings us to the end of this podcast session. Hope you found the inputs from Shastra VC, an operator-driven VC, useful. Would love to hear your feedback on how this episode went and who else you would like to hear on this podcast. Thank you so much, and don't forget to follow me on For $1 Billion More.